As we watch the Black Entrepreneurs Report,
the data reveals a compelling paradox. This growth trajectory,
the very people most ready to create jobs are the least likely to receive capital. The very communities that need enterprise most are those from which investment retreats, talent rises, finance disappears. This is not prejudice, it is myopia. Myopia is costing Britain billions. It's time for change. The Black Entrepreneurs Report. It's in Britain's national interest. As we watch the Black Entrepreneurs Report,
the data reveals a compelling paradox. This growth trajectory,
the very people most ready to create jobs are the least likely to receive capital. The very communities that need enterprise most are those from which investment retreats, talent rises, finance disappears. This is not prejudice, it is myopia. Myopia is costing Britain billions. It's time for change. The Black Entrepreneurs Report. It's in Britain's national interest. As we watch the Black Entrepreneurs Report,
The data reveals a compelling paradox. This growth trajectory,
the very people most ready to create jobs are the least likely to receive capital. The very communities that need enterprise most are those from which investment retreats, talent rises, finance disappears. This is not prejudice, it is myopia. Myopia is costing Britain billions. It's time for change. The Black Entrepreneurs Report. It's in Britain's national interest. As we watch the Black Entrepreneurs Report,
the data reveals a compelling paradox. This growth trajectory,
the very people most ready to create jobs are the least likely to receive capital. The very communities that need enterprise most are those from which investment retreats, talent rises, finance disappears. This is not prejudice, it is myopia. Myopia is costing Britain billions. It's time for change. The Black Entrepreneurs Report. It's in Britain's national interest. As we watch the Black Entrepreneurs Report,
The data reveals a compelling paradox. This growth trajectory
the very people most ready to create jobs are the least likely to receive capital. The very communities that need enterprise most are those from which investment retreats, talent rises, finance disappears. This is not prejudice, it is myopia. Myopia is costing Britain billions. It's time for change. The Black Entrepreneurs Report. It's in Britain's national interest. And we are here. It's the motivator here. This is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours for the taking. How you feeling, people? How you feeling? I'm feeling fantastic. It's been a wonderful few days. I've been in contact with some wonderful, inspiring human beings. Oh yeah. The Motivator Show is here to stay. That's for sure. That's for sure. And I hope you've enjoyed these past few days. Stay strong, and together we will transform the world. Oh yeah, be ambitious. Don't be downcast. Be ambitious. Anything is possible. Okay, we've got a truly exciting episode of The Motivator Show. In approximately, 40 minutes' time, we will have yet another inspiring human being, a centre of Britain's entrepreneurial community. He'll be laying out for us the facts, how Britain could do better economically by ensuring that those communities with the verve, communities with the energy, with the creativity, with the business drive, receive the capital, the investment they need to grow. And growing means Britain grows too. Oh yeah, it's going to be truly exciting, truly inspirational, and provide real guidance for those of you who want to get into business, want to become true entrepreneurs, competent, forward-thinking, determined, successful entrepreneurs. This is the episode of The Motivator Show that you need to tune into. Stay with us. Stay with us. But as is the custom here at The Motivator Show, we want to give recognition to some of our past contributors, those who've made these episodes, this channel, The Motivator Show, truly inspirational and has moved the dial. Move the dial. Those who are downcast now hold their heads up high. Those who were doubtful are now yielding those optimism that didn't exist before. And those who are optimistic are now truly optimistic. And the world remains your oyster. And together we will transform the world. In unity is strength. We say again, in unity is strength. Regardless of your ethnic background, let me emphasize that, but regardless of your social class, your education, in unity is strength. We work together, You work to your strengths, and have it complemented by someone else who works to their strength. And together, you create a much more wholesome whole, greater than its individual parts. Yeah, you learn that trick. That's true leadership. And I'm assuring you, success will follow you. There you are. But I now want to mark at least a number of my past contributors for a few minutes. I think you will all agree that the people of Burkina Faso are setting a trend for Africa. Yeah, absolutely. Setting a trend for Africa and the Caribbean. Why? Because what they have demonstrated through inspired leadership is excellently President Ibrahim Traore. That where you are centered, you're clear in your leadership aims, objective, your purpose, your mission, and you are truthful to yourself, indeed to the community, to your peoples, success is assured. Yes, there'll be many that will try to knock you off course, absolutely. Distract you without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah, resist, absolutely resist. But where you are determined and you're clear, your purpose, your mission is clear. Oh yeah, success is assured. I want to give praise and respect to the people of Burkina Faso. And I want to give a special thank you to my guest in my last episode, Wen Pangye, the voice of God. Hey, what's her name here? Yes. And his voice most certainly resonated across the airwaves, across the internet, across the world and beyond. Thank you. Thank you for the people of Burkina Faso. Let's the country of the Sahel expand right across the continent and through to the Caribbean. Oh yes, success is assured, but remain determined, focused. Do not be distracted. Oh yeah, thank you. What a wonderful episode that was. And if you didn't watch that particular episode, I encourage you to go to the YouTube channel and have a watch of it. It was truly inspirational. I also want to give recognition, and I know, again, it's another sign of the times, okay? And I've got to say that I had a guest, a man full of compassion, okay? For reasons I've noted that it hasn't received as much of a viewing as I would have anticipated, okay? A man who gave up a high-flying career so that he would look after his mother, who is now suffering from Alzheimer. I wanted to do that particular episode because this demonstrates that men like myself, we traditionally assign these tasks to women. Clearly, that's complete nonsense. This man demonstrated a compassion, a love for his parent that we needed to see firsthand. I want to give praise and respect to Aston, who gave up so much but gained so much from his mother, who Dave does not even recognize him, but he stays and cares for her because she gave up so much, sacrificed so much for him. He wanted to ensure in her closing days that she, even though most of the time currently she doesn't recognize him, those moments when she does, he's there. Oh yeah. If the world were like this, if the world could demonstrate that level of compassion, that empathy, that devotion to other human beings, whether it be parent or relative, or stranger or otherwise, the world would be transformed. I want to give praise and respect to him. I want to bow my head out of honor and respect to him. Praise be. Praise Jah, Rastafari. Honestly, that was a truly moving episode of The Motivated Show. But I've noticed not many of you reviewed it. I would wish to encourage you to view it. Yeah? Alzheimer is real and it's pervading all communities, particularly here in the West, pervading all communities. Well done, Aston. Well done. Yeah, wonderful. You know, it's not much more to say, really. It's just one more recognition, more recent contributors to the Motivator Show. I want to recognize the Igbo peoples of the world. I want to recognize their courage and determination. I note of Africans right across the world, Igbos most certainly are very prominent in achievement. Given the opportunity, given the right resources, they're achievers, they're doers, get things done. Biafra, free Biafra, or a new relationship with Biafra, so greater autonomy. I want to give praise to the leader of the IPOP, the indigenous people of Biafra, and all indeed Igbos. Okay, I want to recognize Macy Nancy Kano, okay, who is currently, well, clearly it is forced imprisonment in Nigeria, which is indeed a contrived state. It's not until the peoples that currently make up Nigeria take control of the land, take control of their identities, I'm assuring you, it will no longer be called Nigeria. I'm assuring you. I want to give a special thanks to his wife, Lulu Ukechi Kano. She spoke with such strength, compassion, incredibly intelligent, thoughtful. Yeah. The mother of the people. I've watched that episode on a number of occasions now. I can only say that that's why men and women must work closely together, because they are the basic units of all civilizations. And where you have unity amongst men and women, you have strength in the people. And with that strength, anything is possible. I say to her, respect to you, ma'am, respect to you. Wonderful. Success is assured, that determined effort on your part. Praise be. Praise Jah, Rastafari. Well done. Oh, such privilege to be amongst such people. And those just 3 of this year. Oh, the rest of the year is going to blow your socks off. Let me tell you, it's going to blow your socks off. There's some powerful, awesome human beings who are not in the national press, not in the international press, not in social media, but they're here on The Motivated Show. Oh yeah. Look, and if you haven't subscribed, why not just help us out? That tells the YouTube algorithm the content we produce is both useful and inspirational and should be shared amongst the 1 billion or so YouTube subscribers. And it's free to subscribe. Okay, that's for the record. And if you're watching this, don't simply turn off your phone or your TV or your device. Leave a message, or at least give us an acknowledgement, either a thumbs up or some other indicator to tell the YouTube algorithm, oh yeah, this is worthwhile. Okay, that will help us out considerably. If you haven't subscribed, subscribe today, but watch the entire episode. Thank you for your support, and I've been overwhelmed by your support. Thank you. Now I want to move to the next segment of this episode, and it's a segment that was included some years ago in recognition of a public health crisis. A crisis which pervades the vast majority of families throughout the communities, with conditions such as diabetes, high blood pressure, obesity, in other words, fatness, cancers and respiratory conditions, weighing down the communities. And many of these conditions are heavily related to our lifestyle, what we do or don't do, what we eat or not eating, how we think or not thinking. And therefore, they are avoidable with some determined and focused effort. Here on the Motivator Show, we are devoted to your health and well-being. Your health and well-being is our health and well-being. And if you are sick, then we are affected by your illness. So we must work together to promote good health and well-being, happiness, both physical, mental, and spiritual happiness. So bear with me for just for a few minutes. We want to share with you just a few lifestyle messages. And we hope that these messages will resonate with you. And I know for some, this is a little uncomfortable, and I get it. That's why I get it. But all the evidence show that these messages have transformed lives. All the evidence show that we've actually saved lives. The evidence show in changing your habits through repeated reminders what we can do to uphold our best health and well-being, both physical, mental, and spiritual well-being, makes all the difference to a much longer, healthier, happier life. So if we devote just 5 minutes of these live episodes to lifestyle messages, I hope you would agree with me that this is a message worthwhile. It's an effort worthwhile. And we could persuade every YouTube content creator to do the same, devote just 5 minutes to lifestyle messages. It will be truly transformative. So here we go. Remember, these are not my words. These are words of the experts, those who devoted their lives to upholding our health and well-being. But listen to this professor providing, on reflection, it's this basic, common sense message. But we need to hear it every day. Can we develop habits, even me, develop habits which really runs contrary to our best health and well-being? Yeah, it's just a fact of life. It's part of he says, the human condition. Yeah, and I cannot claim to be perfect. That is true. So this is therapy for me, equally for you. And if we can share these messages with those that we love, those who we care for, those who we respect, and those who are just part of our networks, we can and we will transform the world. Because a people that take care of each other is one from which growth is assured. I say again, if a people's, human beings, if you like, can take care of each other, it is a people's from which growth is assured. Simple message, huh? Simple message. Listen to this professor. Listen to his words. Professor Kevin Fenton says, I'm a public health director. Here are 5 things you can do to improve your health. 1. Mindful and balanced eating. Nourish wisely. Eat whole, balanced meals with awareness to support energy and well-being. 2. Get outside. Be with nature. Time outside reduces stress, improves mood, and strengthens your connection to the world. 3. Stay curious, stay engaged, explore new interests, keep your mind sharp, build social contacts, and boost your happiness. 4. Get active, move it or lose it. Move daily, lift weight, and do cardio. Exercise, improve physical, mental, mood, and energy. 5. Prioritize rest and sleep. Disconnect, rest, Quality sleep supports mental clarity, emotional balance, and overall health. I'm sure you'd agree with me. That is common sense advice from Professor Fenton, Public Health Director of here in London. Common sense advice. If we are able to follow that advice, common sense advice, every day, we most certainly would live longer, healthier lives. He's devoted his life to our health. Yeah. Clearly, these messages for some are a bit uncomfortable. Who you may already have some of the conditions identified, and we get it and completely understand. Completely understand. Okay. But we can mitigate the impact on us, on you, by taking certain steps, by thinking about what you eat, how you live. Mhm. Exercise is seen as being a critical part of maintaining good health and well-being. Okay. And the majority of people still do not exercise enough. They do not exercise enough. We wish to encourage you to do so. Think about what you're eating, but most certainly exercise is a critical component to maintaining good health and well-being. And I hope you would recognize that these messages are not in any way intended to embarrass or castigate, or in any way besmirch. They're intended for you. It's your decision. It's your decision. But these messages are being shared with you, not because there is a financial gain, because there is not, okay, but because we're all part of one world, one community. Despite what anyone else says, we are part of one community. We are one species. We are one race. There are not multiple races. There's only one race, and that is, of course, the human race. Therefore, what affects me would affect you, regardless of your ethnicity. Mhm. We all come out of Africa. We are all Africans. Mhm. Yes? Therefore, these messages are for you. For you. For you. Yes, for you. And together we can and we will transform the world. So what I'm heartened by is the numbers of you who've heard these messages and responded positively to these messages. Have understood working together in common aim and common purpose enables you to achieve great things, great outcomes, great ambition, because you work together in unity, because in unity is strength. So I want to show you an example of people who've come together in common aim and common purpose and now exercising together. So therefore, what, 2 to 3 minutes? What if we all exercise? See, I know, you may be sitting down, I know, I get it. It will do you some good. It will do you some good. No, don't overdo it. Just 2 minutes of exercise. And that would have satisfied our purpose of this channel. Yep. That we provide good quality information, verified information, to which you can incorporate as part of your lifestyle. Why these are called lifestyle messages. If in doubt, ask questions. So I want you to watch this group of people who've come together in common aim and common purpose and now exercise together. They've pulled their resources so they can exercise together. People from diverse backgrounds coming together in common aim and common purpose. It is absolutely worthwhile. Watch this, and please don't simply sit there and watch. Just try to participate. Only 2 minutes or so. That's all it takes. common purpose, recognize and exercise together, we're able to transform our lives together. That's right. Oh, she's sweating, just smiling. There you are. That's right. That's right. That's right. Woo. That's right. Just a few minutes. Just a few minutes. There we go. There you go. That's right. Put your knees up. That's right. What we want to do is a few moments of exercise. It's good for our general health and well-being. Look, even the children are there. Even the children. Get them young. Get them in the habit of exercising. That's right. So take that habit into their adult life. That's right. Wonderful. There you go. I'm going to pause it. There you are. Oh, I hope you would agree. For 2-3 minutes, if you did that every day, and you build up over time at your own pace, it would make all the difference. Whole purpose of the Motivator Show is to provide good quality information that you can verify for yourself and satisfy yourself of its integrity, its accurateness. Yeah? And in doing so, with confidence, you can implement some of these changes in your life. Exercise is good. Always good to take professional advice before you start, okay? But light exercise is safe. Get light exercise and you graduate over time because you are part of the human family. Therefore, there's a mutual interest in your best health and well-being. Hope you'd agree. That's worthwhile. That is worthwhile. So whilst I continue to be heartened by the numbers of you who've heard these messages, okay, who've come together in common aim and common purpose, working together to promote good health and well-being, I'm heartened by it. Keep up the good work. Look, the group I've just mentioned there are based here in London, South London, in fact, okay? So if you're in South London, why don't you just pop in and just say hi to them? Say, you can mention the Motivator Show. I will be there, in fact, this Wednesday, because this Wednesday we're going to take a number of testimonials, important testimonials. And I may record them, and you never know. I may even show a few of them here on the forthcoming episode of The Motivator Show. But anyway, there you go. The details now on the screen. Let me put it on the screen for you. They're called Countdown Health and Wellbeing. They meet every Monday and Wednesday between 6:30 and 8 p.m. They meet at 12 Tatum Street, Tatum Street in London. That's postcode S for sugar, E17, 1T for Togo, N for Niger. There you go. We've got an email address for to reach out to them. It's countdown0405@gmail.com. I repeat, countdown at 0405@gmail.com. Telephone number, if you're in the UK, it's 07960 803 588. I commend the work of Countdown and organisations like them that have sprung up across London and Britain and beyond. Well done. Keep up the good work. And together we will all transform the world. Thank you for that segment. Now I need to move to the next segment, which of course, this is the Motivator Show, so we are very much a campaigning channel. We campaign on issues which are from importance to us all, issues that affect some people but have a consequence for us all. We are our brothers and sisters' keepers. No matter what anyone says, yes, you can live a life alone and just think about yourself and go fast. Great, it's all very nice. Yeah. If you want to go far, we do it together. In unity is strength. Okay. So I want to just raise a few before we go to the main segment. Okay. And the first issue I want to raise is an issue of profound importance, an issue that generally is not discussed, most certainly not on the general media, I note. But this is the Motivator Show. We're not afraid to raise those issues of profound importance to which the general media deemed not so. I want to address the issue of FGM, that is female genital mutilation. It is estimated that more than 200 or so million women are FGM survivors, and there are still tens of millions who are at threat of being mutilated in this manner. I know this is a sensitive subject, I get it. Okay. I'm not going into details, but I raised the consciousness around the issue. And I know for some, they don't want to discuss it. I get that. And I'm not going to judge you. We're not going to judge you. But it's an issue we need to bring to the fore. Again, this is the Motivator Show. You're not going to see this elsewhere. I get that. We hope that other content creators and other platforms will magnify this message. But it's an important and profound issue. The day I was exposed to it and I was able to speak to some of the women affected, they speak to me because I'm outside of a community that as part of their so-called culture. Mm-hmm. I have to say that I was profoundly affected. And when I asked, well, why don't you tell your husbands, your dads, your brothers, you know? Mm-hmm. There was an immediate closing of mouths, not to be discussed. I say to the leaders, I most certainly say to the men, we need to discuss this subject because the women are suffering in silence. And yes, quite a number had this happen to them when they were babies, in theory, when they didn't know it was happening. But far too many, it happens when they're fully conscious, when indeed the most intimate parts are developed. And therefore the pain and trauma will definitely live with them for the whole of their lives. No, I will not be silent. I know some of you will turn off because this is, what to do with me. Actually, we are but one family. We're one human family, and therefore it is everything to do with us. I want to give praise and respect to a good friend, indeed an elected official here in London. She describes herself as being an FGM survivor. Her name is Councillor Naima Ali. Indeed, she is an FGM ambassador here in London. Okay. And later, in fact, yesterday, she held a conference which focuses on this particular issue, which we will discuss with her on another occasion. But I want to give praise to her for her work and magnify how you can contact her. So here we go. I'll put details on the screen for you. She's a former mayor of Southwark here in London. She's the founder of Unshackled Duma. Unshackled Duma is an indeed London-based organisation that empowers women and girls, particularly from so-called Black, Asian and world global majority groups and Muslim communities. The organisation focuses on promoting empowerment, autonomy and advocacy with a strong emphasis on combating female genital mutilation, FGM. It raises awareness about FGM's harmful impact, effects, and supports survivors and works towards eradicating the practice. If you wish to reach out to Councillor Naima Ali, email address is unshackledduma, followed by digit 2 at gmail.com. It's on the screen, unshackledduma, followed by digit 2 at gmail.com. Honour and respect to Councillor Naima Ali. Well done. Keep up the good works. Keep up the good work. A powerful issue and one that we must not shy away from. Another issue, another campaigning issue here at the Motivator Show, as you would expect from us, the effect of climate change. It's growing effect of climate change. Here in Britain, for example, I'm based in London. We've seen little, and forgive me, we've seen no snow this past winter. We've not seen snow. 30 years ago, we would have had at least 5-6 inches of snow. Today, 30 years in the future, there is no snow. if we wanted evidence that the world indeed is warming up at a rapid pace, that is a sure sign of danger on the horizon. The effect of warming atmosphere is, of course, to intensify climatic effects. And in the case of the Caribbean, that's to intensify storms. And these storms are in the forms of hurricane, and their increasing intensity is having a profound impact, particularly on the Caribbean islands. Okay. The most recent storm to impact, Category 5 storm, which means 185 miles an hour winds, impacted the island of Jamaica and Haiti with significant and profound impact on the people. So today, there are still hundreds of thousands of people in Jamaica without a home, without a business, without the means to create income. Public buildings which have been destroyed, all because of climate change. Britain here, the founder of the Industrial Revolution, responsible for releasing tens of billions of tons of carbon dioxide, indeed, atmospheric warming gases into the atmosphere. A profound impact Britain's had, much of Europe and America has had, Japan has had, over centuries. Billions and billions and billions of tons of these gases. And they are having a profound impact. What I want to do now is just bring to your attention a school in Jamaica that was devastated by Hurricane Melissa, the Category 5 hurricane, winds of up to 185 miles an hour. Can you imagine such intensity? Yes, it wreaked havoc and destroyed lives. I want you to watch this short video, an appeal by the principal, the head teacher of the local school, appealing to the international community for support. Watch this video. PNP UK Hurricane Melissa Disaster Relief Fund appeal for a better Jamaica.
Good morning, students. Say good morning, parents. Good morning, students. Today is what month are we in?
We are in the month of January.
Everyone, I am Lexia Lewis Hines, principal of the New Building Early Childhood Institution in New Building, Nain, St. Elizabeth. We were adversely affected by the passing of Hurricane Melissa on October 28, 2025. And as such, we lost our school roof, we have lost furniture, books, and other learning materials for our young ones. I am hereby making a plea asking for any contribution that can be given to assist us in further renovating our school building so that our students can return to some semblance of normalcy. We have already received some donations and we're able to cover half the roof. The other half is patched up with the old zinc that was there from before. And as such, any contribution is an investment in our young ones, the future generation. And so this is my plea, asking for any contribution that can be given in assisting us to be better able to facilitate our young students. Thank you so very much.
New Building, Early Childhood School, New Buildings District, Nain, St. Elizabeth, Jamaica.
January is 21 days old.
On behalf of PNP UK, we hope you would agree that this school needs to be rebuilt so that the children can enjoy the teaching and learning experience. Support the Hurricane Melissa Disaster Relief Fund to Build Back Better, the school. Send your donation, whatever you can afford, to PNP UK. That's at NatWest Bank, sort code 600802, account number 298612333. And in the bank reference, please quote DRF Melissa. Thank you for considering. Thank you for your donations. Wonderful. Again, thank you for those of you who've already contributed. We anticipate that PNP UK would in fact appear here on the Motivator Show to give us an update on progress made to date, so you're aware of how those resources are being utilised. There's no agency fee coming out of this one. All the money raised will go to, devoted to, ensuring that score is brought back fully into use. In fact, what we want to do is to build back better. So it's a more robust building, suitable for the ever-growing environment that Jamaica will find itself in. So we need buildings which can withstand hurricane force winds. Oh yeah. And together we will do this. Together we will do this. One school at a time, one public building at a time, one home at a time, we'll build back better. And together, we will transform the world. Thank you. Thank you. And well done to all those members of PNP UK who are actively involved in raising these resources to bring that school back into full use. Well done. And again, thank you for those of you who are able to contribute. Well done, well done. It's all accountable, open and transparent here on the Motivator Show. All righty, all righty. Now it's time for us to move to our next segment. The next segment, of course, addresses the issue of the 2021 Black Entrepreneurs Report, authored by Dr. Carlton Brown, an eminent scholar here in the UK, a man of distinction, a man who has gathered the data, the evidence, and demonstrated how Britain is undermining its own economic interest. Okay. Amongst so-called African communities, black communities, if you like, from the continent or the Caribbean, the Americas or otherwise, incredible talent exists. But they require investment, confidence from society. And society, without a shadow of a doubt, would be magnified, create new jobs, new opportunities, create new tax revenue for the nation. But it's been undermined by myopia, short-sightedness. The evidence is clear. It's clear. Dr. Brown has compiled that evidence. We just need to watch and absorb the evidence and consider wherever we are, if we are policymaker, what we could do to make a difference. Mm-hmm. If you're there, a manager, what you could do to implement these strategies, because it's in Britain's, in all of our interest. Dr. Brown's work, he is commendable. He used the phrase, the race paradox. Amongst many of these entrepreneurs are brightest and greatest, but yet they've been denied access to loans, to finance, to capital, venture capital. Yes, makes no sense, does it? It's Great Britain that suffers in the long term. It's Great Britain that suffers. I want you to watch this video, this interview with him. It is truly an inspirational experience. It is truly an inspirational experience. And I want, please, in watching this, that you not just watch it, leave a comment or give us acknowledgement that the content that you've seen has been worthwhile. Do that for us. It really does help us out. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, we urge you to do so. It helps, it tells the YouTube algorithm that the content we're supplying is worthwhile and needs to be spread amongst 1 billion or so YouTube subscribers. And it's free to subscribe. Yeah, it's free. But the issues today are serious and profound. But I want you to absorb the information, but don't become depressed, because there are many shoots of optimism, of hope out there, as Dr. Brown is at pains to remind us. The situation is not bleak. It is not bleak. But it could be better, he would say, I'm sure. It could be better. And together, working together, regardless of your ethnicity, we'll work in a common interest. Where there's common interest, where there's common purpose, common aim. Oh yeah, anything is possible. So without further ado, I want to introduce to you, and I'll bring it up on the screen now for you, this interview. It was one of the most inspired interviews I've been able to conduct. It's full of content. Get your pen and paper out, if you like, or your computers out. Take notes of some of the content, references he provides. This is not the entire interview. The entire interview will be available over the next few days. Okay. But this provides you with an important excerpt from the interview that I'm assure you is truly inspirational. At times, I push him, I challenge him, and he responds with grace and humility. Dr. Carlton Brown. Here we go. It's the motivator here. This is where we translate our words into action, and where success is ours for the taking. And believe me, people, it is a mindset, because today's interview is with an inspired African man from the Caribbean, but a man of distinction, with many credentials and many accolades to his name, a man truly respected by the community. He sits at the very center of our economic vibrancy. He is a friend and a regular visitor here at the Motivators Show. I don't want to flatter him too much because, oh my gosh, he doesn't need to. Look at his face. Look at him. Hey, that's a face of vibrancy. Oh my gosh. There you are. There you are. I'm going to ask him to introduce himself, Dr. Carlton Brown. Just say your name, your organization. Then I'm going to have a follow-up question for you. But I'm not going to tell you what it is right now, but just say who you are, because some of my audience may not know you. There you go. Go.
Okay. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for your wonderful introduction. So my name is Dr. Carlton Brown. I have a company called Aspire Consultancy. I'm a consultant. I work with both the public, private, and third sectors. I specialize in areas of leadership, strategy, but also diversity, equity, and inclusion, supplier diversity. I'm also the host of the UK Black Business Entrepreneur Conference, the author of the Black Entrepreneur Report in 2021, and soon to be published, the report, The Race Paradox, Why Organizations Fail on Race, which is being published by Jacaranda Books.
Wonderful. And I have to say to the audience, your original paper was, for me, a seminal document. I have to say it most certainly opened my eye, I don't know, many of my colleagues' eye, to the realities of Black businesses here in Britain. Okay, there's a great deal we can achieve and do about this, and I'm pleased that you've got people like yourself at the center, at the very center of the thrust towards change. But you mentioned your company, Aspire Consultancy. Okay, now typically at this point, I would ask my guest to mark a significant aspect about themselves. On this occasion, I see Aspire Consultancy and yourself as almost one the same. Okay, okay. I note that there you are, that corporate entity. I see that it has a purpose and a mission. What is its purpose and what is its mission?
I think the purpose, Martin, is I think when I think about Black and ethnic minorities communities in the UK, but specifically looking through the lens of the African Caribbean diaspora, we economically have challenges. And so for me, our purpose is to try and see what we can do and develop, both from a research perspective, but also from a pragmatic perspective, to influence, shape, change the narrative and give access to opportunities for Black entrepreneurs in the UK. Because economically, there's a significant disparity between us and the many other demographic groups in the UK. But if we can have a foundation of strong economics in terms of how we are as people, as individuals, that helps us to deliver on so many different fronts, such as buying assets for property, as an example, where we live, what schools we go to. We know that education underpins a lot of the things that are important, because with good education, we make hopefully better choices. We have access to better information and knowledge, and that can lead to social development, such as how do we eat, where do we eat, what type of foods do we eat, and I think then what schools do we go to. So it becomes this virtual circle. So having a good economic foundation, for me, the purpose is that to give us the opportunity to have access to opportunities as a foundation. So the reports and the things we're trying to do is just to support that, and to say to our community, look, we recognize there are real challenges, they're historical and they're current. So how do we change that narrative? And I think quantifiable data as well as qualitative data helps us to share that insights with others, and hopefully for them to think about, actually, it's not just I want to give these people a handout. It's not about that. It's actually, how can we give people a hand up and just demonstrate that there are structural inequalities, and how can we change the narrative around that. So that's our purpose, that's our mission, that's what the things that we try to do, and the reporting and trying to report on things and doing the research helps us to navigate that particular path. So our mission is just to help and genuinely support. But I think there was an old quote by Edward Deming, and Edward Deming said, "Without data, you're just another person with an opinion."
Well said. Yes, that's
so
quite
without
right.
data, you're just another person with an opinion. So data underpins the narratives and the discussions. So and hopefully through the data, it can help us to shape and change strategies, help develop policies around things that will give substantive change, not just cosmetic changes. So that's what we're trying to do.
Okay, thank you, and that's a very useful insight as to how you think on these subjects. And having read the earlier Black Entrepreneurs Report, 2001, of course, provides some useful insights as to how you think and how you operate. And you're right, data without good quality data, you're not able to formulate good policies, strategies for resolution. Yeah? I get that. I just want to, if I may press you, before I get to the reports and your forthcoming report, okay? I've noted that in your early response, would it be fair to hypothesize that a causal factor not mentioned in the report, that Black African Caribbean entrepreneurs are not particularly good employers, generally paying below the national living wage, high staff turnover, offer poor quality product or services, or indeed underinvest in public relations and marketing generally. Businesses are poorly governed, therefore high risk of public and proposed high risk for public and private sector organisation to interact with. Isn't that really an aspect of our reality that we need to get better at managing our business? Would that be a fair assessment? Yeah, I know it's pretty brutal, but I just want to get that out the way now, if I may.
Well, first and foremost, where's your evidence?
Okay.
So I've not seen any data that supports that narrative for sure.
Okay.
So let's talk about what there is out there. There is lots of businesses that are demonstratively doing extremely well, and obviously, so high growth businesses that perform extremely well. Now, the one piece of data I can reference here was a report a few years ago called by Bain & Co. And it talked about entrepreneurs how they deliver against procurement satisfaction survey. So in other words, when you do business as a diverse business with larger organizations, what was their level of satisfaction? And what Bain & Co report suggested is that where Black and ethnic minorities are engaged with corporate organization, there's between 93 and 95% satisfaction rate. So that will dispel your current hypothesis there, Martin, that suggests that we are not delivering on that. Now, so McKinsey's report, 2023 diversity report, I think 2018 and 2023 were the two diversity reports. And they talk about having Black and ethnic minorities in leadership roles.
All right. Okay.
And they talk about having females in leadership roles. Now, what they measured was 1,000 or 1,200 organizations. And what they did, they compared the top 25% of the organizations they studied versus the bottom 25%. And what they discovered was what the top 25% of these 1,000 companies versus the bottom 25%, that where there was a female or females in the leadership teams, they were 25% more likely to be perform better in performance, productivity, and profitability. But when it came to having Black or ethnic minorities in their teams, leadership teams, there was an improvement of 36%. So, in other words, what they're saying in terms of these corporate organizations, in terms of the McKinsey study, what they're really saying is where you have Black and ethnic minorities in your leadership teams, your performance tends to be better. So having diversity within the business is not a challenge. It's actually good for your business based on that data set. So if I want to speak to particularly to your point about poor quality of service, I don't see that. Listen, there are lots of businesses out in the UK, and I'm sure there are good, bad, and indifferent, and across the spectrum in all demographics, and I'm sure that applies in our community as well. But I wouldn't singularly say that our community has an adverse or a monopoly on having bad businesses in some shape or form. So I can't subscribe to that particular view. I'm sorry.
Very good.
The data, as far as I'm aware, the data doesn't exist to support that notion.
It was important for you to respond to that undercurrent. In some quarters, these are the suggestions, but there was another suggestion, if I may put to you, and forgive me if these are pushing these questions right at the beginning of our interaction, which will be a positive one, I might add. But I did want to just continue though in this vein.
Okay, that's fine.
But will you not deny that Black African Caribbean neighborhood high streets are not dominated by businesses from that community? There are numerous examples of when given a choice, Black African and Caribbean shoppers will spend most of their earnings outside the community. We have our retailers, particularly in the food sector, who fail to secure the loyalty of their own community. Isn't that some, as it were, evidence? My first question may well be substantiated by shoppers deciding where to shop. From our community, deciding not to shop in shops that is managed by members of their own community. Is that direct evidence? Okay.
I'm going to take your words, Martin, and it's almost counterintuitive. You prefaced the question by saying there are not many African Caribbean shops on the high street.
Indeed.
In the first instance. So if there are not many on the high street, therefore the opportunity to go and find those shops becomes limited. By virtue that there is not sufficient of them. That's on one aspect. You're talking about food and groceries. But on the reverse side of that, if I walk into my local barber shop or my local hairdressers, which are local shops, to your point, they are full.
This is true. And very true.
And they're being patronized consistently.
Yes.
So so it is a matter of the type of retail that you're referring to. So you can't just arbitrarily say across the piece that we don't patronize our own business. I would agree that that there are some established shops which have been out there for many years and which are patronized and are not owned by our communities, whether that's
Indeed.
going to buy your local yam or plantain, it doesn't matter, but or your oxtail, we if we don't own those shops, if they don't exist, what are the alternatives? You have to buy it from somewhere, and if you're
Yes.
saying that those shops are also limited, therefore it makes it even tougher to find. So, in terms of discoverability, having said what I've just said, I've always posed that question, and 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 you position the question is within our neighborhoods. Our
Yes.
neighborhoods are very expansive,
Yes.
and we don't live in a monolith. We don't live in one particular location. So in some locations, we'll find it difficult to find the plantain and the ackee and the saltfish. And it's not always easy to do that. So you go where you can to find what you can. But when you're there, can you find is it a Grace brand that you can then start to you're now making, even though it's maybe not a particular shop, which is owned by someone from the African Caribbean diaspora, but you can actually then have a choice to select different brands.
Okay. I'm going to accept your response, but I want to press you a little further on the food sector. So food, we have no choice but to buy food, and it's always quite noticeable. And I've not resolved as to why that is so. Food we buy is significant. We spend hundreds of millions of pounds each year on food as a community, but yet as a representative retailers, we tend to want not to be in this sector. Is there a reason why, in your experience, why we're not as successful in the food sector as we are, for example, in the hairdressing and the barbershop sector, for example? Why do you think that might be?
I don't know. I mean, there are increasingly other shops, retailers who are now starting to get into the food sector in a premium way. You have the Black Farmer as an example.
Yes.
So he's opened up several retail outlets. There are other, when I think about in Tottenham, there are other retail outlets. When I think in South London and Brixton, there are different retail outlets. They do exist. They are there. Not whether they find it people they want to go in a particular sector for a particular reason. I'm not quite sure, but they do exist. Not in volumes. It is quite. Barriers to entry are quite high in terms of what it costs to open one of these stores in a meaningful way. That it looks well, it presents well. You've got to kit it out. You need cash to buy your stock. You need to do the fittings. You need staff, and at the front end, it's quite capital intensive. So therefore, it may be actually, and it's lower margin. So it may not be as attractive as an industry as some may want to go into it. They might be, and if you look at the tech sector and innovation, there are lots of Black and African Caribbean diaspora who are pushed in that area, and technology is great, and they enjoy it, and it's a higher margin type business. So it's just a matter of choice, I would suggest.
Okay, fair enough. Again, accepting your response, but this is a question that I've received on a regular interaction, particularly out in the community. There is that bewilderment that the high streets are not dominated. I'm here in South London. Peckham's not too far away, and the contrast is notable. It's most notable, particularly for young people. Particularly young people noticing this. But I'm going to accept your response that in other sectors we are well represented and well supported by the communities across the board, not only our own. I'm going to accept that. But if there were budding retailers, food retailers in the community, you can offer the necessary consultancy to enable them to manage their businesses effectively, I assume.
Let me just take you back a second there, Martin. Right, you
Okay.
talked about the food retailer per se,
Yes.
the off license, that type of thing. But
Yes.
when we also
Yes,
think
yes,
about
yes.
when we think about the, if I want to take away, there are sufficient we don't have a shortage of finding African Caribbean takeaways or African Caribbean restaurants,
Yes.
African and Caribbean hairdressers and barbers. I mean, they're just some of the sectors. Equally so, we've got African and Caribbean accountants and lawyers and uh, architectures and architects and people in tech and finance. So we have lots of people in professional services. So again, we have a highly educated, since 2009 to 2019, according to UCAS, Black and African Caribbean is one of the fastest growth communities at universities.
Yes.
So
right.
they may not necessarily wish to go into that particular retail route. So just to be clear, so there are plenty of high streets opportunities which do exist. But if you're just literally limited it just to the retail sector, yes, there aren't sufficient, and it may not be considered a sexy business anymore. It may be a low margin business, a business as I alluded to earlier, which is the barrier to entry is quite cost prohibitive. So therefore, it takes a lot more capital to start up. And if the margins are low, is it really? And it's very long hours. Is it really attractive? In some instances, I'm not quite sure. But it doesn't mean it's not a good business. And there are plenty of examples, as I said, the Black Farmer is an example, who seems to do very well, got his own brand, and is doing extremely well.
Yes.
If I think about other brands in the commercial market, the Jim Kitchen, as an example, is a brand doing extremely well. It's on the shelf in Tesco's up and down the UK and Morrison's and Asda's, Sainsbury's, whatever. So there are entrepreneurs doing extremely great stuff. And I think if we focus on the things, the actions, and the things that we are doing positively, I think that's really useful, as opposed to just a gap or a particular segment of the market. And our thinking could be more expansive and in that context.
All right, it's okay. It was necessary to put this one. That's why I necessarily put that question to you, because following on your last appearance, I was challenged to say, I'm called Martin outside, but the motivator. Look at our high street. Where are our shops on the high street? And I'm in South London. I've got Lewisham, I've got Peckham, and indeed, I also have Brixton here in South London, for example. And these were a group of young people, 50 or 60 or so, and I didn't have a cogent response to explain why we were not present in the retail sector on the high street, which is the shop front for their neighbourhoods. Okay, but we hear you, Dr. Brown. We hear you. We hear you.
Okay, but the next time you have that question, Martin, maybe you can reframe the question and say, if there were a choice between 10 different types of businesses, what would you want to go into? And ask that question, and then listen to the response and the feedback, because then you'll have your answer.
Right. Okay.
Because it may be that, how many of you would want to go into retail? How many of you want to go into AI and technology, let's say? How many want to go into banking and investments? How many of you want to become an entrepreneur doing, I don't know, property portfolios? And find out what the response is out of those top 10. And if the answer comes back that 9 out of 10 of them say, I want to go into retail on the high street in Peckham, I take my hat off, right? And do you know what I mean?
Yeah, good response.
And I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with becoming a retailer. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, that's great. And if it helps you deliver on positive outcomes for you and your family, not a problem at all. But if the answer to that, if the question is, why is it that we're limited? Well, first we need to have people who are invested in wanting to go into those sectors. And if the answers come back, actually, if there was a top 10 choices, would that come as your number one, top two? Well, great, we've got it wrong.
I understand. Thank you. And I know a number of them are watching this and will latch on to your words. Okay, so I will put it to them. Don't you worry. Thank you,
Okay.
thank you, thank you, thank you. But let's move it on in that case. And I want to now go back to the original report, the Black Entrepreneur Report, first published in 2021, get it right. Is, of course, a seminal document. I mentioned earlier on, impact it had on me and my public life interaction with others. But I suspect there are members of my audience, though, who've not had a chance to read the report. I'm not boasting, but I've read it at least 30 times since it was published. Okay, I've read it by necessity, I have to add. Okay, but I want you, please, Dr. Brown, to share its main finding, including your response and explanation of the use of the term race paradox, and what is the race paradox.
Okay. So let me start off with a definition. I think that would be really useful to know. So the race paradox, there's a disconnect between intention versus reality. In other words, what organizations say they want to do versus what they actually do. So two things can be true at the same time. And we call that double thinking, right? Two things can be true at the same time. Lots of organizations are out there, whether you are talking about finance, whether you're talking about the supply chain, giving access to opportunities, social capital, whatever that looks like for us. There's lots of people or organizations saying, actually, we want to do better. And these are the things that we're doing to make them better, whether that's we've got unconscious bias training, or we have employee resource groups, we have celebrations of Black History Month, we have training, we have a open recruitment policy, we have policies that underpin our organization. All of these things may well be true. But when you ask the other question, tell me how much of your senior leadership team is made up of Black and ethnic minorities, it's a significantly low number. Yes. If you ask in the corporate supply chain, whether that's the public sector or the private sector, so in the public sector, we at one point in time, less than 1% of the annual spend in the public sector was not dedicated, because that's the wrong word, facilitated to Black and ethnic minorities. It doesn't mean because they're not good businesses, it's just that access to some of those opportunities. So there's a disparity, an ongoing disparity, and this is what I describe as this unconscious illusion of inclusion. The disconnect between intention versus reality. Right. Okay, so that's the paradox. So now I'm going to speak to the report.
Oh, forgive me, if I may, before you go to the report, again, I believe I've understood what you described. In other words, the policy says you do X, but the outcome suggests that it's very different. Okay. But the policy is sound. Is it a paradox, or is it a journey that organization's on? So when I describe organizations into four quadrants. There are those who are what I describe as trying to walk the walk. They're generally trying to do all of the right things. Their recruitment policies, how they promote, who they mentor. They don't always get it right, but they're generally trying to walk the walk and align to policies and legislation. Yes. There are those companies that I describe as what I call cultural laggards. So these are companies that don't really care, will languish behind, they don't want to change, they're fairly myopic in their thinking, they're conditioned in a particular way, and diversity is not the top of their agenda, and inclusivity is not necessarily top of their agenda, unless they're forced to do something different. Right. The third quadrant is what I call the beacons of change. There are those organizations who are championing change. If you look across their entire organization, it's reflective of a real diverse community. Their supply chain is reflective. They're very fully engaged, and across the piece, whether it's based on gender, race, or any of the intersectionalities, they're very much there. And the final quadrant is what I describe as those organizations that sit in this paradox, the race paradox, high on talk but low on walk.
They do all of these things. Their adverts are celebratory. They can see, oh, we have females, we have people of different genders, different sexuality orientation, different colors, different races, all of those things. They talk about training and equality. They have public proclamations.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, when you strip away the veneer of all of that, so
Mm-hmm.
that's the intention piece.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
But when you look at the reality piece, as in the outcomes, you know, what's the senior leadership team still look like today versus 5 years ago? When I often ask
All
this
right.
question,
Okay.
it's a very uncomfortable question. Well, you know, we're working at it. Well, what needs to change here in real terms? You know, and I'm not saying this. Listen, you know, the term meritocracy has come up a lot of the times, and you've heard it bounded around. And I actually believe we should really believe in a meritocracy. But
Okay.
the challenge is that the people who get access to the opportunities coming through the door to the people that you're able to then measure on a merit basis are not on sitting around the table getting the opportunity to have that conversation. So this is what we need to kind of understand, is that the challenges are accessibility as opposed to potentiality. So we don't always get the access through the rooms that we need to be into to be sitting in front of someone to be able to demonstrate how capable we are. It's not about capability here. That's definitely not the issue. We have the capability, we have the qualifications. You know, a lot of our I can remember the first study, 70% of our entrepreneurs had degrees. So they're bright individuals. They're qualified.
Yes.
They're capable.
Yes.
So yeah, so that's where the paradox lies.
I'm still going to press you just one more time on this, and I've heard you. What I think you're saying is that there are some organisations who have great policies, but have not put a plan to implement those policies, or they have great policies, but the plan to implement is not sufficiently robust enough, and they've simply failed to implement it. There are those who are simply are showcasing policies to which they have no intention of implementing.
All of the above are true. Okay.
Right.
So
Okay.
if you think about it, though, in this context, Martin, is that
Mm-hmm.
organizations all claim to have strategy. What's our strategic plan for whatever year? And I think Peter Drucker said it the best when he says that strategy, culture eats strategy for breakfast.
Indeed.
So culture eats strategy for breakfast. So if you think about that, the culture means this is how we do things. This is our DNA. This is how we operate. This is our operating model. And if your operating model, forget your plan for a moment, but if your operating model and your structures and systems are so embedded into your organization and structurally embedded, your culture makes it difficult to you to change. So you can have a plan, which is fine, but if that plan is not enabled to work within the cultural setting, it's never going to happen, because culture eats strategy for breakfast. It's fixed. The structures and systems are developed in such a way that it becomes prohibitive. Why should you know?
Okay.
So, for example, let me give you an example. If I, we know that we've had the Public Procurement Act, which came out a couple of years ago. Is it 2023,
Yes.
2024? I can't remember the year
23,
specifically.
24, yes. You're
Which was
correct.
designed to simplify procurement, but also to give access to small SMEs and ethnic minorities to make a level of playing field. I don't have the data for this, but I suspect the onboarding and the opportunities for SMEs, small and medium enterprises, Black and ethnic minority entrepreneurs, has the number significantly changed in terms of how they get access to those opportunities? I don't know. Despite the policy changing, despite the Procurement Act, that's the point I'm making. All of these things are true.
Okay. All right. All right, I'm going to leave that hanging for a moment. Let's just go into the report proper. Okay, you've
Okay.
addressed the race paradox, and because that race paradox gets, as it were, the kernel of the report, really, I suspect. Okay, but just tell us what does the report highlight? What are the sort of key findings of the report? It's for the benefit of my audience first.
I mean, there are several factors, Martin. One,
Yeah. Mhm.
trust in
Okay.
financial institutions, or the lack thereof of
Mhm.
financial institutions. Two, um, there's a belief in our community. At the time, I think it was 58% believe that our cultural identity, in other words, how we look, who we are, has a negative impact on access to finance. In other words, if I go to an institution, a financial institution, um, my appearance, as in terms of my ethnicity, will
Yes.
have a negative impact. And it's ironic. I mean, not ironic, but when I cross-reference it, when I think about the Lloyd's Bank Black, British, and Business and Proud report, um, this was I think 2021, 2022. They also said that they surveyed 1,000 entrepreneurs, and they said 67% of Black entrepreneurs report experiencing discrimination. And only
Right.
at that time, only 40% of banks act in the best interests of Black and ethnic minorities. So you can see
40%.
there's a
Gosh.
correlation.
Yes.
There was a
Yes.
correlation, in my own report and others' reports, including the Lloyd's report, that are talking about discrimination and trust and accessibility. In terms of supply chain, as an example, part of the report talked about if I knock on your door and say, Martin, hey, I've got a great product or service that I'm looking to offer your organization, and I can fill out your pre-qualification, your PQQ, or whatever it's called, your request for information. I can fill out these forms, and I can submit uh, my application to you as an organization. We'll fall down for several reasons. They may think we're too small. And lots of organizations are what I consider what they describe as being risk averse. What do
Right.
they mean by
Yes.
that? If your turnover is, let's say, £26,000 a year, and the contract that you're applying for is £50,000 a year, automatically they're going to say, oh, this company, if they apply for this, that's going to more than double their revenue. They can't potentially manage that. It's too risky for us to give them a contract of that size.
Right.
And that's part of their indirect system, right? So that's the system that organizations structurally have for a variety of different reasons, and they get to protect themselves. But on the other side of that coin, when I think about Black entrepreneurs, their average turnover is between 26 and 30K. So, and that's across the board. It doesn't mean that we've got those doing a 20 million, 50 million, 100 million. We've got those companies doing that level of business as well, right? So, but if I look at the norm between an average white business from a startup perspective being 45K versus a business doing 26K, when I walk through the door, in terms of that profile of revenue, I have less access to those opportunities versus my counterparts. So structurally, the challenge is already there.
Right.
Okay, so
Yes.
but also 75% of the recipients in the first report said that when I walk through the door, there's a negative perception of themselves.
Yes. I
So
read
in other
this.
words,
Yes.
people will
Yes.
look at them and say, actually, unconsciously or consciously, whichever way you want to look at it, my perception of that person, because of their race, coming through this door is a negative one. In 75% of the cases, that was the perception that was felt.
An
So the report
astonishing
talks.
number. Forgive me, Dr. Brown. That is an astonishing number, and it's really is an indictment of British society. It really is an indictment of British society, and because 'cause you're discussing identifying systems, as it were, but actually we're talking about people, and it's people's behaviours that is impacting us.
Oh,
Uh,
agreed.
go ahead.
I mean, Martin,
Okay.
I'm as you know, I'm looking to revisit the report 5 years on.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm currently I'm doing a survey and research on Black entrepreneurs 5 years on to have an update version of the Black Entrepreneur Report 2026.
Right.
And I was reflecting, Martin, and I thought, I always, and I was thinking about my mother in 1962 when she came to Britain from Jamaica with
Hmm.
her British passport. and trying to
Yes.
find a property
Yes.
in 1962, and she encountered, because back then you could only rent properties. Not you could only rent, but you started off renting before you were able to purchase a property.
Yes.
But how dare I say it? She encountered the same old adage: no blacks, no Irish, no dogs. So that in those days, in 1962, people would advertise rooms for rent on the front of their
That's right.
houses.
That's right.
But you would have thought that those things are changing and those things are behind us. But in 2023, and this is a societal issue, you're quite right in pointing that out. Not everybody in society, that would be folly of me to say, but
No.
Generation Rent Report in 2023 did a study on two females, both age 26, both professionals, both working, and they applied to My Spare Room. I think that was the report, Generation Rent Report. They applied to 200 landlords for rent of accommodation.
That's right.
Their CVs were identical. The only difference was one was a black female and one was a white female.
Yes.
And the white female received a 36% more positive response rate than the black female.
Yeah.
So whilst it may have not been as blatant as it was in 1962, but 60 odd years later, we're still seeing it online, where the data still tells us that there's still exclusion. So society still has a challenge for sure.
Yes. Right.
But this time, it's not a front door being slammed in your face. It's just no response online. There's no feedback. So there's the challenge. And people are responsible for this. You're quite right in saying that. And those same individuals are also leaders in workplaces. They're colleagues in workplaces. And I'm not saying this is all people, so let's be clear about this. But, having intention
Okay. Yes.
does not equate to positive outcomes.
Yep.
And we should measure outcomes and not just our intentions. And if we can do
Absolutely.
more of that, we won't continue to be living in this paradox of race, where there's this disconnect between intention and reality. So that's my notion on that.
Thank you. And those are a few of the highlights from the report. I'd recommend it, those of you out there. I'd recommend if you're in business or want to get into business, you should read this report. If you are a policymaker in local government, regional agencies, county authorities, I recommend you read the report. It is truly a seminal document, one that most certainly opens one's eyes. It is well researched and well presented. Even if I say so, Dr. Carlton Brown, even if I say so, it was certainly an invaluable document, I have to say, an invaluable document. So those are a few of the highlights from the report in terms of findings. I'm interested now in the recommendations, okay, because obviously the report such as that does contain useful recommendations. And can I ask you, I'd want you to go through them all, maybe top 5, 6, top 7 maybe. Give us a few of the key recommendations you'd like to bring to our attention, as it were, today, which we will then have a few moments to discuss. Go ahead.
I think the first thing, Martin, is I mentioned it about just a moment ago about outcomes. And there's an old adage when I worked in the corporate space, we love KPIs, key performance indicators. And there's an old, very simple, I said it earlier on, what doesn't get measured doesn't get done.
Absolutely.
So measurement has got to be key.
Yes.
What are my outcomes? We can talk about the platitudes and things that we intend to do, but first and foremost, measure it. Measure what is it that you're intending to achieve. Is that you want to have more accessibility to more diverse suppliers in your supply chain? Well, measure it.
Yes.
Is it that I want to have more leaders in a senior leadership team? Well, the question is, one of our recommendations is, do you have a pipeline of suitable candidates coming through? So that's one thing you can do. 2, how can you develop and mentor and coach those individuals to get access to those opportunities? When you're recruiting, are you recruiting and you're having a balanced recruitment approach? In other words, do you have blind recruitment? So we know from CV applications, and I can't remember what study it was, the number of applications that are required, and it was I think it was called the leadership. Was it leadership legacy? I can't remember if it's called a leadership legacy.
All right.
Where they looked at the number of interviews granted
Yes.
based on the number of CVs. So what we know, it's less. So if someone had an ethnic minority sounding name versus an Anglo-Saxon type name, so Khan or Smith, Khan or Smith is an example. Khan would have a less likelihood of being granted. It will take more applicants, more CV submissions for Khan to be granted the same number of interviews as Smith. So I think it's 9 times more applications, even though the CVs were equivalent in terms of qualifications and experience and expertise. So getting organizations to do blind interviews would be an example of that. Doing blind interviews and then the balance could come in from having a panel. If you're having a panel, make sure that panel's diverse. Absolutely. So it's not just the same people doing the interviews. When you think about your supply chain as one of the other recommendations, think about the structures that you have in your supply chain. Are they prohibitive and it denies access at the beginning of the process? So you don't actually even get through the door. So there are some of the things that you can actually do to try and mitigate some of these particular challenges. But the starting point, and of course, it's going to take leadership. And one of the things I speak about a lot is, what do leaders do about it? You know, you're sitting at the top of the tree, you're talking about this stuff, you think it's important, but are you measuring your outcomes in your board meetings every month? What's happened here? What has changed here? What are we doing here? Because if it's not on the agenda, how important is it for you? And I finally go back to culture. How do we change cultures within organization? And culture is a very difficult one to change, but it can change over time. But it takes a more intentional perspective and intentional approach to what we're trying to do. So yeah. So I think there's a lot of things we can do to change, but it starts off with leadership. It starts off to changing the culture, but then certainly you have to measure what your intentions are in a true sense, so you know it can make a real difference.
Absolutely. And the report is rich with recommendations. Tell me, at the time when you published this report, how did the public sector, in the private sector organization respond, those who've seen it? Did you see some changes? What impact do you believe it had?
That's an interesting question. I mean, in some cases, I've worked with some organizations and some of the recommendations they've implemented, and which is great to see. So from an altruistic perspective, I think, actually, did it make a difference? Even if it's a small difference, it's important. And I think in some cases it has made a difference, and some of the recommendations were taken up and utilized. Even if it's a way that organizations have gone away and thought differently, it's the result of the report is then subsequently manifested into the Black Entrepreneur the Black Entrepreneur Conference in the city, which is something we do now on the back of that, where we engage both the public, private, third sectors and Black entrepreneurs. So put them in the same spaces. And then since that time, we've had entrepreneurs who've attended our conference as a direct consequence of the report, and have now got listings and are now suppliers of some of the top retailers in the UK. So there has been some positive social and economic impacts as a result of the report. As I said, one local government we worked with, they did something really unique through an explanation or through one of the recommendations, and we kind of tweaked one of the things they were doing, and it now results in small Black and ethnic minorities getting access to opportunities what they wouldn't have ordinarily got historically. So yeah, I'd like to think it's made some difference, but listen, it's not significant enough for me, because it needs to be a wholesale change across the UK, not just in London, whether it's Birmingham, Manchester, Leicester, Leeds, it doesn't matter. We want organisations to think differently and to act differently.
Yes, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And I'm just very conscious as you describe its impact. I've got to ask this question. Is there a difference between how public sector organisations contract Black, African and Caribbean businesses compared to the private sector organisations? And what I really mean is the procedures, minimum expectations. And what challenges are faced by Black, African and Caribbean entrepreneurs when applying for contracts in either the private or public sectors?
I mean, I referred to earlier on, and I'm not sure that this thing. I mean, in any public office, there are rules, there are regulations, there are policies and systems which has to be adhered to, because you're spending public money, and you are accountable and responsible to spend and procure in a diligent way. With now, the Procurement Act came in, as you're aware, which looks at how organizations are procuring, certainly in the public sector. And part of that is how they grade a tender. So when you're submitting an application for something, to tender for a piece of work, you are required now, from my understanding of it, it's a while since I've read the Procurement Act, but you're required to consider and rate organizations and give them a weighting dependent upon the size or ethnicity, to give it a slight equilibrium to balance the opportunity up for those organizations. I don't know what the outcomes are at this precise moment. I don't know what that looks like in terms of a real answer to say, this is what it looks like, Martin. These organizations are doing better as a direct result of the Procurement Act. I don't know. But what we do know in terms of the number, the data says, I mean, I mentioned it earlier on, that less than, at one point in time a few years ago, less than 1% of the public procurement spend was being accessed by Black and ethnic minority entrepreneurs. So that's a significant disparity in itself. So that suggests there's something there that is limiting our opportunity. So how do we fix that? The answer is, I hope that some of these structures that have been put in place from this Procurement Act will help go some way towards it. But again, go back to leadership, go back to policy, go back to culture, and accessibility, and the way of thinking, because it's just, I think we often, I think, Martin, we get comfortable with being comfortable. Right. You're now what you're asking people to challenge the status quo. The answer is, well, why should I do that? It works. Why am I going to upset the apple cart? Why am I going to do anything different? And what you'll get is the response, well, if they're good enough, they get there. But actually, it's not about if they're good enough, because that's definitely not the case here. You have people which are very talented, have lots of potential, qualified, they're experienced, they've got expertise. So this is about access. So how do we get people to get access to those opportunities? And then when they get access to those opportunities, give them a fair crack at the whip to deliver on. Because going back to the Bain report, they know in terms of customer satisfaction, between 93 and 95% of customers are satisfied when they're dealing with a Black and ethnic minority, and they have delivered.
Thank you.
They're delivering.
What about you focus, first of all, the public sector, the private sector, these big corporations or medium-sized corporations who procure services? What impact do you believe you had there? Is there a difference in how they conduct the procurement process? And if there are,
I mean, a lot of large organisations do have procurement processes, because that's part of what they do. but the Institute of Procurement and Supply Chain, they did a study a few years ago about supply diversity, and I think it was done in conjunction with MSD UK. And one of the things they talked about, and MSD UK are an advocacy organisation that advocate for diverse businesses to get access to corporate worlds, right? So that's what they predominantly do. And the Institute of Public Procurement said, or procurement, not public procurement, of procurement stated that large organisations are risk averse. So they're not always willing to give opportunities to smaller enterprises first and foremost, or diverse, because it's easier. They categorize companies into tier one, very large companies, multi-million, billion-pound worth of organizations, tier two, tier threes, and tier fours, etc. So a tier one is a really large organization. So it's easier, Martin, for me to give you a contract to, I don't know, let's do catering or food services, let's say, or cleaning or security. But within that, you can then engage with smaller companies. You can as a tier one supplier. Now, so it's easier from an administrative company, administration, from a corporate, whether public or private sector, to say, Martin, we're going to give you the contract, you sort it out.
Right. Okay.
Okay. So you're a tier one supplier. You've got the insurance policies, you've got the capital, you've got the infrastructure. And actually, I just have to raise one invoice and I speak to one person. Yes. You might have 2,000 people around you doing various jobs and you can subcontract to different organizations, but I actually don't have to deal with all of that. You do all of that stuff. So it's easier to deal with a large tier one. So that's the challenge, first and foremost. Secondly, as I said, they're risk averse. You're a security company. Well, you're just one person, you're a few people, you're less than 10 employees. Is it a bit too risky for us to give you that level of opportunity? And you may not have a sufficient insurance policy to mitigate our risk for us as a public or private company. Yes. So I think there are different reasons for that. But they all have systems, and it's difficult often to break into those large corporates because the requirements are, they want higher margins, so they happen to work with larger companies who could afford to maybe work with lower margins. Being one, they want capital companies which are very liquid and capital, have the capital there. Yes. So I think there are different reasons for those corporates to choose that type of organization versus a small black ethnic minority who's an SME.
Okay. And this is an interesting junction point, because of course, you are correct that they are risk averse, and therefore they want to transfer that risk to someone else, tier one, let them handle the subcontractors, as it were. In the building sector, that's very much the case. They very much use tier one for the main contract and leave the tier one contractor to subcontract to smaller local businesses. Yeah, sorry.
But what they can do, though, Martin, is even if they felt they were risk averse, what they can do is to say to that tier one supplier, 20% of your obligation from getting this contract, we expect to see diverse businesses as part of that framework agreement. So you can manage, we're now giving you the responsibility to manage that risk, but we want you to report and tell us and inform us what you've done to deliver upon that part of our corporate social responsibility, engaging more diverse businesses or more local businesses, because it can be both. It can be a bit of both. So if you describe being in South London, and Peckham. So are there architects? If I'm a builder in Peckham, are there plumbers in Peckham? Are there project managers in Peckham that you can use, who are from diverse backgrounds, who are small, who are local people. So they can be done, but it's just the will to want to do it.
Okay, I believe in most cases there's a legal obligation, in fact, to ensure that there is some balance in those who they contract. But I want to just see this point just for a further moment or two, because clearly it is typically, I'm aware, many businesses from Black African Caribbean communities gain access to the public or indeed private sector main contracts through their tier one contractors, and that typically is the case. Um, but I wondered if there's a recommendation you might wish to make that, in fact, a public organisation or indeed a large corporation issuing these contracts, there'd be an obligation on their part to potentially reorganise some of these contracts so they are suitable for the smaller SMEs. You could have a contract that's potentially worth £10 million, but it's over a period of time in different locations, and you could apportion it, contract in the smaller parcels, in order to cover the main your main contract. That could happen, and it could be. Why not make it a legal obligation on the part of the contractors to do so? Why not do that? Why rely upon these tier one organisations?
Well, first and foremost, now, Martin, we have a legal framework now. We have the Equalities Act. We have discrimination.
Indeed.
And we have now the Procurement Act. There, so you're not supposed to discriminate based on any of the 9
protected
characteristics. Okay,
yes.
so that's already in place. I mean, don't forget we started off in 1965 with the equality. I think what was the Equality Act, was it? The Race Equality Act, I think it was.
Yes,
or the Race Act in 1965. Yes. So that already exists, right? So, but in answer to your question, so yes, I think you can say to a tier one supplier that there's an expectation here within our contract with you that you will engage in our local community, and you'll engage with a percentage of our Black and ethnic minority communities within your contract portfolio, and we want you to measure it, and you have to demonstrate as part of your KPI. And if you don't deliver on that, you don't want to make it prohibitive, right? And I caveat what I say here. And I'm not saying that you should use a business if they're not good enough. And I'm talking about businesses that are fit for purpose here. Let's be clear. Okay,
yes.
This is not, as I said, it's not about a handout. This is about a hand up. Okay, this is not about just giving something because someone's a Black or ethnic minority. I'm not saying that at all. There are good, solid businesses out there who can deliver what you require, and it's just giving them access to that opportunity. So that's the first thing I want to caveat and be clear on.
Yes.
2, so what could you do in terms of reframing something? So if you work in local government, Martin, there are, at a certain point, I'm not sure if it's the ODEC spend, I'm not sure what that is today. It used to be 50 or 80,000 pounds. That there's a certain level where local government has to go out to tender over a particular value.
That's right, yeah.
And you have to, get 3 or 4 quotes or people can tender for it.
Correct.
But there are these discretionary spends. So you might have a contract worth £5,000 or £10,000. You might have a contract that you are spending every so often. You're hosting a conference or an event, and it might cost you £3,000 or £4,000. But you might have 10 of those in a year.
Yes,
that might be £30,000. But because you've got a bigger tier one supplier who might do those, you might say, actually, any of our discretionary spends, as an example, which come under £10,000, it could be that we've got florists, that we've got small cleaning offices somewhere, or why don't we create a small department that looks at small discretionary spends? But when we aggregate all of that spend together, actually, that's millions of pounds.
Yes.
So why don't we create and aggregate a small supply chain discretionary spend department, whatever we want to call it, that is able to enable buyers, procurement teams, to give access to opportunities ring-fenced to Black and ethnic minorities and local communities under one pot, and publicize those contracts availability. But if the large big boys, tier one, comes in for those, they don't have, not saying they don't have access to it, but if you're intentional, going back to the point I was making at the beginning, to give access to opportunities, caveat what I said, those businesses must be fit for purpose. Why don't you just do something like that? That could be an easy win.
Yeah. All right. Well, they're policymakers. You've heard Dr. Carlton Brown make what I think is a very sound and reasonable suggestion. And I'm aware in local government there are people of similar mind. We need to help them to deliver that vision. I think you're quite right. It most certainly will enable their local economies. That's for sure. Am I right? What 80+% of all businesses in the UK are SMEs? Is that right? About that figure?
I think that was high. I think it's mid to late 90s.
Gosh, there
SMEs.
you
I mean,
go.
yeah, an SME is defined as companies with
Mhm.
less than 250 million, and less than
Indeed.
250 employees, or something
Mhm.
to that extent. I think,
Yes,
yeah.
there you are. And the reason why I mentioned that, of course, because they typically employ local people. There you are.
Mm.
So you're supporting your local economies. That was a useful. Forgive me. That was a very useful insight to the recommendations and the likely impact it would have. But I'm also aware that the sector of most concern to budding entrepreneurs and so on is finance. Okay. Now I've got to ask that. I'm going to make this assumption, and you may or may not agree, but you're going to tell me otherwise. You're the doctor, I'm not, so there you are. Black, African, and Caribbean entrepreneurs face disproportionate challenges in obtaining
Mhm.
traditional and venture capital financing, there's a trend consistent with the broader UK entrepreneurship research on ethnic minority firms. Examples: refusal of loans or limited access to venture capital access. Now, is this am I making an assumption or is this a fact? And if it is a fact, what is happening? What's happened since your report was published?
So, I mean, let's think about it in a more broad context. It's not just
Okay.
about my reports. If we just think about the Lloyd's Black, British, and Business and Proud, and we think about the NatWest Time to Change report, all of them speak to finance. And in fact, there was a report, and is it Venture VC? I can't remember specifically, or Impact X Capital. I'm not sure which one gave the data. But what it essentially said, it will talk about venture capitalists now. So, but
Mm.
bearing in mind, not most people will go for venture capitalist
No,
investment.
no.
So the vast majority will start off either bootstrapping their own business with their
Yeah.
own cash, or family and friends. That's traditionally, and because of the lack of trust we alluded to
Mhm,
earlier on,
mhm,
and I
mhm.
think it was the Lloyd's Black, British, and Business and Proud report said that only 30% of our community will seek bank finance, but
30%.
only
Okay.
30% will seek bank finance. But because there's a lack of trust,
Okay.
well, if I go to the bank, will I get refused? So
Okay.
I might as well not go because I don't trust. I don't think I don't think I'll get it, but B, I don't trust them. So that's the kind of narrative. And I'm not saying that's the case in all cases.
Mhm.
In venture capitalist terms, and I'm talking about traditional debt finance here. In other words, I'm going to borrow some money. I'm going to borrow 10 grand, 20K, or whatever it might be, right? Just traditional loan financing, debt
Mhm,
finance.
mhm.
Venture capitalists, when we're talking large investment in taking and often taking equity or stake in your business, um, black female entrepreneurs were less in, I think, over a 10-year period, had less than 0.01%, less than 0.01%. I think that's the exact number, investment from a VC companies into black female
Oh.
businesses.
Oh, really? Okay.
So in
Oh,
other words, it's negligible.
yes. Uh-huh.
So it's poor, right? So finance, generally speaking, because of historical factors, lack of trust, will we often go to seek finance? I think the narrative is changing, and I've got to caveat what I've said. I think Lloyd's produced a subsequent report from their earlier report that said trust had increased from, I think it's 40% to 75%. So
Oh.
trust is increasing according to their latest report. So, but there's still a challenge. If you go to the British Business Bank, they will tell you, and this is the British Business Bank, British Business Bank says that Black and African Caribbeans are more disproportionately affected and have less access to finance. That's an independent report for themselves. So if you look in the whole, in the round, different reports, the sentiment is very clear. The data is clear that if you're a Black, African Caribbean, and an ethnic minority, you're less likely to get access to finance, and the barriers seem to be higher.
Right.
Not my opinion. The data
Okay.
tells us that.
Okay. So that's I'm going to pause there. Dr. Brown went on to produce some really solid evidence as to how we can change the situation. And it truly is beneficial to budding businessmen and women, budding entrepreneurs. So the final section, which is about 45 minutes, is jam-packed full of solid advice for you, our business communities. Okay, this will be published within the next 24 hours. The entire interview in 20, 30-minute slots. So that will enable you to access what is high quality information, almost for free, but most certainly from someone who with a proven track record for success. And what is quite evident from that interview, that these are not idle words, as he said it, if you've got the data, this is not an opinion, it is an observation or indeed a detailed fact based in evidence. So this is not some sort of wishy-washy, my opinion, our opinion. This is solid fact, solid research, which of course is cross-referenced with other similar studies to ensure there is indeed a consistency of the result. In other words, it's sound, and one must pay attention to. But Dr. Brown is quite exemplary in this particular field in supporting budding entrepreneurs, enabling those who are in business to grow, enabling policymakers and others to review policies, ensure those policies are not simply window dressing, but actually documents which are dynamic, implemented, which really are a source for change. Those laggards, which you referred to, those with these wonderful policies, but no intention to implement them, are those we've got to watch carefully. But nevertheless, if you really want to know more about this, contact and reach out to Dr. Carlton Brown. And if you haven't attended the Black Entrepreneurs Conference, which is on later this year, I will put reference to this both in the final recordings version, which will be available in the next 24 hours, and I'll make some reference in the comment section of this live video. So you can attend that conference. And it's a worthwhile conference because you'll be among people of like mind, dynamic people with an enormous resource of energies, people you could network with. And you want to network with people who want to be successful, who are successful, and are willing to share some of their tips and experience with yourself. That's the environment we want to culture. That's the environment that is available at Dr. Carlton's conferences. And those conferences, I am assuring you, are second to none. Well done, Dr. Carlton Brown. That was just a taster of his insights, but what follows, what you've not seen today, is substantive recommendation, how you can make a difference, how you can be successful in business. Well done, well done. Wasn't that exciting? There is a light at the end of the tunnel. The sun is shining, yes? There's a future here, despite the barriers. And indeed, with that mindset, anything is possible. In unity, strengths. Yeah? Actions speak louder than words. Oh yeah, we will translate these words into action because success is ours for the taking. Oh, wasn't that wonderful? I'm privileged to be amongst such people. The opportunity to interact, to interview them, so that we can share just a little bit of their inspired person, their inspired personalities. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. But don't go just yet. I've got just two two campaigning issues I want to share with you. After all, this is the Motivator Show. Earlier on, I mentioned the impact of Hurricane Melissa on the Caribbean, Jamaica, Haiti, and other islands. Okay. But of course, Britain is clearly a contributor to this situation. Okay. I want to play this for about 2 minutes, a short recording from another man held in high esteem here in Britain. His name is Lee Jasper. Okay. And of course, his campaign, of course, is devoted to encouraging the government here in Britain, to give more in support of places like Jamaica, whose economy has been devastated by these unusually high winds, these hurricanes. Okay. I want you to watch and listen. He provides a useful insight of what we could do, but he's worth listening to. Again, been here on the Motivator Show, an inspired human being, someone worth listening to. Watch this.
Hey family, my name's Lee Jasper. I'm a veteran activist here from London, England. And I just want to talk about Hurricane Melissa and the British government and the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's response to that hurricane. Family, look, Jamaica and areas of the Caribbean are on its knees. People are desperate, homeless, unable to access medical supplies and treatment. Children are left homeless because their grandmother's house has been completely obliterated. People are unable to go to school. People have no valid forms of employment. And all Britain can offer is £7 million. I mean, it's a disgusting insult to the Jamaican community. And we should be very clear in terms of what our response should be. I'm not sure what we're supposed to say, but thank you to Keir Starmer for 7 million change. I could find more change down the back of this sofa than Starmer seems to have found for Jamaica. And just imagine, people, we spent 20 billion on war for the Ukrainians, 20 billion. And we opened our doors, as we should have done, to victims of war who needed a safe evacuation. But we have exactly the same scenario with people in Jamaica and other areas of the Caribbean, whereby they're homeless, they've got no form of valid long-term employment, they're living on emergency package. Those of us who are in the United Kingdom, who have relatives throughout the Caribbean, should be able to relax our humanitarian visa laws and bring them here so they can have quiet, convalescent and respite, care and attention from their families here in the United Kingdom, whilst Jamaica is rebuilding and they can return after that. So we're calling for two things, family, and need your 100% support on this, because once all the Christmas and the emergency stuff has died away, Jamaica is still going to be in a problem, and probably even a bigger problem if the rumoured health outbreaks and epidemics break out as a consequence of lack of sanitation and clean water. And so I'm calling on you to support our petition. You might be able to see the QR code there if I just move to the side. Here is the QR code. Hope it's visible. If not, maybe I can make it more visible. Here is the QR code. All you have to do is put that into your phone and sign the petition. We also have done one meeting in Brixton. We're doing another in Tottenham Hale, and we're having another hurricane emergency meeting in Wales, Manchester, as well as Preston. And why are we doing this, family? Because we think we need a national lobby of Parliament on Prime Minister's question time to take 5,000, 6,000 of us to Parliament to press the Prime Minister and your individual MP to increase aid to Jamaica, as Dawn Butler's already written in The Guardian to that effect, and we're fully supportive and behind that. To talk to your Prime Minister and MP and lobby them to relax the visa control. How is it that an 8-year-old child whose parents live in the United Kingdom and who was living with her grandmother in Jamaica is denied visa entry on humanitarian grounds to the United Kingdom? But that's what the latest stories we're seeing coming out of The Guardian and other news outlets. So we need a national lobby. Give Jamaica much more aid, 7 million, make that 50 million. How about that? How we make it 50 million pounds next year that the UK government gives to Jamaica to recover. Humanitarian visa restriction? Yes, so that we can give people respite. Because our family, they're our community. And we're here suffering the anxiety of not knowing we can help, but we can't get them into the country. So I'd ask you to support our call on the Prime Minister to increase aid and relax visa applications. And finally, family, this is going to happen every year with increasing intensity. So Britain and the West, as the major polluters, must pay. They must pay recompense for climate justice in those countries, or else otherwise, 2 hurricanes of Melissa's size in over a period of 18 months, as we saw with Beryl and Melissa, would just leave the island completely unsustainable and devastated. Britain must pay more. Britain owes more. Jamaica helped build this country, and they're giving us 7 million. Take it. And I'm asking you to organise mobilising meetings in your local community area so we can take thousands of our community in the new year to the Houses of Parliament to lobby on behalf of our people who are struggling in Jamaica. Thank you. Scan the QR code if you didn't do so already. There it is. And share the video. Peace.
Well done, Lee. Well done. And absolutely, we want to get behind that initiative. It is vitally important. This is the Motivator Show, because this is where we translate our words into action and where success is ours, very much for the taking. Well done, Lee. Well done, Lee. And if you wish to reach out to the Motivator Show, our email address, just for your reference, I'll put it up on the screen now. There you go. The email address is themotivatorshow501@gmail.com. I repeat, themotivatorshow501@gmail.com. Those of you who want to know our email address, you have it there. Love to receive your comments, and we will always reply. Okay. And lastly, as I said, the interview that you've just heard will in fact be go out in a recorded, edited version within the next 24 hours. You'll see the entire interview and those last 45 minutes in which Dr. Brown sets out the strategies for success. Yeah, it is truly a powerful example of what can happen when you have people of that caliber able to provide the advice to us. Okay, the situation is one that we can, forgive me, we will turn around. We will turn around. And the Black community, the African and Caribbean communities here in Britain, absolutely will play their fair share in boosting Britain's economy, promoting export and import from across the world, and most certainly from Africa and the Caribbean, created new vibe, new zeal amongst the entrepreneurial classes, creating jobs and opportunities, and creating an opportunity for Britain to grow. Yeah? Yes, this will happen. With your help, it absolutely will happen. There you are. Well, that was the Motivator Show for this particular episode. I hope you enjoyed it. We try to ensure that each of these episodes are both insightful, intelligent, and inspirational. The guests that will follow will always contribute to that theme. We've got a wonderful lineup of some real heroes are lined up to appear on the Motivator Show. They are truly outstanding human beings. But if you're in doubt, ask question. That's what I say to you all is vital, to ask questions. Be your own researcher. Don't just listen to what people say. Validate it by doing your own research. Ensure that what is being said is accurate and objective and serves your interest. Failure to do so would mean that you are subject to manipulation. But here in the Motivator Show, we are concerned with your empowerment, providing good quality information you validate for yourself and incorporate as part of your consciousness, your awareness. And in doing so, we transform the world. I'm going to play now, as a part of my outset, is the part of the intro video, which actually set the scene for today's interview. And I hope you found that interview exciting, insightful, and a source of hope for the future. Real data, real advice that you can incorporate as part of your consciousness, your business, to help you to grow. And if you are able to grow, you can and will transform the world. If in doubt, I say again, ask questions. If in doubt, ask questions. Because asking questions, and I say this every episode, asking questions allows you to assess the responses in a way that would not be possible if you simply accept what people say. You empower yourself. I say again, you empower yourself. Until the next time, I remain the Motivator Show. As we watch the Black Entrepreneurs Report,
The data reveals a compelling paradox. This growth trajectory,
the very people most ready to create jobs are the least likely to receive capital. The very communities that need enterprise most are those from which investment retreats, talent rises, finance disappears. This is not prejudice, it is myopia. Myopia is costing Britain billions. It's time for change. The Black Entrepreneurs Report. It's in Britain's national interest.